Page 7, Roaring Lions. Let's cover out all these symbols and things because we need to know what they are. They're important. And it's this kind of a review. I've already talked about them. But I may add a few things, you never know. We got a grand staff because you got that curly brace at the beginning of it. You got the treble clef and the bass clef, so you know where the notes are on the lines, on the staffs. You got 4/4 time signatures 4/4 in the staffs. At the end, you got that repeat sign again, a thin and thick bar line with 2 dots. It's a repeat sign. Means you're going to play it twice. We got notes, and again we're in C position. Let's just make sure we got the names of the notes first. Both hands, I'm going to take it, I like to take it one hand at a time, and then once I got a handle on one hand at a time, then I go back and see if I can put the hands together. Because on this piece we're playing both hands at the same time. And that can get tricky because you're using different fingers. And that gets tricky. At least I know when I was little and first learning to do this, I struggled with it. I wanted to use the same finger in each hand all the time. And we don't do that all the time, so let's just cover the names of the notes. So we're in C position. I'm going to start with the right hand here. And we have an E, and you just need to memorize these notes in the music. Just memorize them. E, G, C. And the different ways of memorizing them, and again, I leave that up to you on what approach you want to learn. I don't care what approach you use. There are other videos on YouTube that teach you how to read music and all that, and there's different systems for learning how to read music, and you can, now I'm just focusing here. My instruction on it is to tell you to learn these notes, and that's as far as I take it. I leave it up to you. So it's an E, and a G, and a C, and that's middle C, by the way. And then the next measure, remember a measure is that space between those lines, which are measure lines, or bar lines. And the next measure, there's nothing, there's a box, I'll come back to that. And then after that, you got a D, E, F, G, E, D, C. So just make sure you can name the names of the notes. In the left hand, we have, you don't have anything in the first measure, that's that box, we'll skip that. Then you have your C position, you have an E, a G, and a C, and then a D, E, F, G, E, D, C. So then just know the names of the notes. Then we go back and we can count it. So we get the rhythm, right hand, it's quarter note, remember 4/4 time. We're counting to 4. There's 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. And the bottom number tells you what you're counting, which is quarter notes. So it's 4 quarter notes in a measure, or the same as 4 quarter notes in a measure. So it's 1, 2, 3, 4. Remember that half note, because that's a quarter note, that's a quarter note, and then that's a half note. Half note's the same as 2 quarter notes. Remember the whole, half, quarter, what we talked about? So 1, 2, 3, 4, and then the next measure, there's that box again, we'll skip that, then go on with the quarter notes. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, rest. You got the rest on beat 4 then. Left hand, well in the first measure got that box, I'll come back to that. In second measure, you have the quarter note and half notes. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, rest. Then once I have a handle, or I can play each hand separately, then I go put them together. Here. So it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2. Rest. And this is the tricky part because you're using different fingers. The middle fingers are together, but otherwise they're different fingers in each hand. And that confuses some people. You just slowly go over it. It will come eventually. It just takes a little time. You'll get it. Now, that box I keep talking about, skip the box. That box, you'll see it hangs below the line it's the next to the upper line in each staff. It hangs below it. That box is the symbol for a whole rest. A whole rest is the same as a whole note, except you're quiet. Well, in 4/4 time, that's the time signature, a whole note is the same as 4 quarter notes, so it would get 4 counts. Well, if there's 4 counts in a measure, that's the whole measure. And that's why it's there. It accounts for 4 beats, yet being quiet for 4 beats. So like in the right hand, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2. See, I'm quiet for 4 counts. And that's what they are in each hand. It's not so bad here because while you're quiet in one hand, the other hand is doing something that keeps you entertained. But just know that box that hangs below the line is a whole rest. And I keep saying below the line because it's important, because there's also a box that sits on the line, and that's different. It's the same, I mean, it looks like the same box, but one's below the line and one's above the line. This is below the line. It's a whole rest. Now, there's a note there at the top to name the intervals. They keep pushing intervals. All right, fine. You want to talk intervals? I'll just give you the spiel on intervals because really they're pretty simple if you can count. I'm assuming you can count because we got a lot of counting going on in music. First off, it's like, what's an interval? Okay, simply put, an interval is the distance in notes, how many notes are between 2 notes. Any 2 notes. Doesn't matter where they are. Doesn't matter when they come. Any 2 notes. The distance between them is the interval. For instance, we'd keep going here, the next one. Well, I count it. And the note I'm on is always 1. We don't start in 0 in music. We start with 1. So if I want to know the distance between these 2 notes, I simply go 1, 2, 1. That's as complicated as it gets right there. 1, 2. That means the interval between these 2 notes is a second, because I counted to 2, a second. If I go these notes, I want to know the interval between them. I just count it. 1, 2, 3. It's a third. 3 for third. It's a third. That's a fourth. That's a fifth, 6th, 7th, 8th, 9th, 10th, 11th, 12th. You just count them. And that doesn't matter what the interval is. You can always figure it out. Always start at the bottom note, because if you start at the top note and get down, there's a problem with that. I'll talk about it a little later. So just get in the habit of starting up, going up. Let's say, for instance, look at Roaring Lions in the first measure there with this here, these notes. Well, if I want to know the interval between the first note and the half note, I can figure it out. It's an E and a C, but I'm going to count up. So it's not in the same order it appears in the music. I'm going to count up. So we have an E and a C. I must count from the C up. 1, 2, 3. It's a third. So the interval between the first note and the half note is a third, because it's counting up. It has nothing to do with where they are in the music. Don't get confused. It strictly is how far apart they are, vertical. Piano is nice because it's laid out really nicely and it's easy to count it. It shows real nice where they are. You can count it in the music too by going line space, 1, 2, 3, 4. You can count it in the music too. But I find it easier for me, at least, just to use the keyboard. So all the time I'm in college and music theory and we're studying this stuff, I could picture a keyboard in my mind, and that really helped me because I could figure these things out in this keyboard in my head, and it made it easier for me. It's a personal thing. They want you to name the intervals. Well, name them. The here to here, first 2 notes, well, that's a third. A third is easier because it's every 2 notes. Those are all thirds. It's every other note is a third. In the music, it's easy to see thirds because they're both on lines next to each other, or they're both in spaces next to each other, and those are thirds. So we have a third here, and then going to the C, well, count out. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. That's a fifth. From the G to the C, that's a fifth. And then the third measure over here, those are seconds because they're next to each other. And then that's a third, a second, and a second. So you'll gradually learn to see the intervals. Not going to help you a lot right now, but I guess this is preparing you for something later on. Okay, that's fine. Now there's words to this, and there's 2 lines of words. Well, it makes sense. It's repeated, so you can sing the first line of words, and then the second line of words when you repeat it. I don't sing in my videos, forget that. But if you want to sing, it's up to you. I think that singing it just makes it harder. I don't consider the singing an important part of learning to play the piano, is what I'm saying. There is a style of singing that is important, but this isn't it. I'll get to that later. And there's more symbols here than what I've talked about. And again, I'm going to wait. We'll get to those a little later. Let's just cover this much right now, because you can always come back and do these again once you learn more about these other symbols if you want to. Now, I'd like to play this with you very slowly. Now, this is after you've learned it. Go ahead and make sure you can play it. And when you're counting, however fast you go, I don't care how fast you go, as slow as you want to, but it's got to be a steady beat. Can't hesitate anywhere. No hesitations allowed. You work on those spots if you're hesitating and get rid of it. It's got to be a steady beat. Get into the habit of making it a steady beat when you play. When you can do that, then come back, because I put the starting point of the play with me in every video in the description, so you can see if you just need that part of it, you can go right to it if you need to. I would suggest you listen to the lesson again just to make sure you're not forgetting anything or skipping anything, because if you're like me, you daydream. So somebody will be talking and then all of a sudden my mind has wandered off somewhere else. And then I'll come back. Well, I've lost whatever they said when I was gone. Happens to me a lot. So in that case, I have to go back and review everything again to catch what I lost. And hopefully I didn't lose it again. I'm going to give us 4 counts. And let's play this together very slowly, and we are going to repeat it because there's a repeat sign. So go ahead and put your hands in C position here, and here we go. 1, 2, ready, go. 1, 2, 3, 4. 3, 4. Repeat. 4, 3, 4. Rest.